Dad brought back a girl after the divorce, but I mistakenly thought she was his illegitimate daughter from outside. So I started bullying her endlessly every day, until the girl's identity was exposed. She was actually the daughter of the boss of my father's company, afraid of being retaliated against. So I chose to run away from my life. I didn't expect that when we met again. She had unexpectedly become my sister brother. So you've been well. My parents divorced during my 3rd year of middle school. I asked them why they divorced, but the answer I got from both sides was personality incompatibility. A few days later, my dad brought Liu Ruoyan home. During that time I was reading novels like crazy. I immediately imagined a heart-wrenching drama. My dad was constantly ambiguous with a white moonlight outside, and had an illegitimate daughter. After my mom found out, she was heartbroken, and filed for divorce. As soon as my mom left, my dad moved into our house with the illegitimate daughter. I suddenly realized, my dad is a company executive, with countless things to be busy with every day. He brought Liu Ruoyan back, then turned around and left. Liu Ruoyan looked like she grew up with a silver spoon in her mouth. Even the simplest little white dress on her had a unique charm. Liu Ruoyan had a distant yet polite smile on her face, came to my room, and greeted me. Her outstretched fingers were like white scallions, with a lingering scent of jasmine around her fingertips. My name is Liu Ruoyan. How should I address you from now on? I grabbed her hand, without a word, dragged her onto the bed, covered her with my quilt, and rolled around on her through the quilt. The weather was muggy and hot. Covered by such a thick quilt, she was extremely uncomfortable. Liu Ruoyan became angry out of embarrassment. Her voice was muffled. What are you doing? I mercifully lifted it a bit. From now on, I'm the boss of this house. You're the lackey. You have to listen to me in the future. I had a ferocious look, and a very fierce tone. Liu Ruoyan's cheeks were slightly red. She didn't dare look into my eyes, hesitated for a long time before giving a hum of agreement. Since then, my bullying intensified. My dad was busy with work. He usually lived in an apartment near the company. The nanny at home had a high salary, and her only job was to take care of me. Although my dad is the one paying, I am the little boss. The fact that I bullied Liu Ruoyan, the nanny turned a deaf ear to, and acted as if she didn't see anything. She would even cover for me. Knowing that the school hunk was going to confess to Liu Lian, I stuffed a pair of panties into Liu Ruoyan's pocket a day in advance. But having nowhere to vent her frustration, I laughed uncontrollably. I threw unwashed socks directly onto her bed, forcing her to wash them for me. Liu Ruoyan was very unwilling. I would crawl into her bed. Then you'll have to let me sleep in your bed tonight. You go sleep on the sofa. When the exam was approaching, I dragged a pile of exam papers to her room to make her tutor me. If she didn't help, I'd have the nanny put extra cilantro in her food every meal. You could say I was very bad. I spent 3 years living like a pampered young master. When the exams ended, Liu Ruoyan also left. I sat on the sofa with my legs crossed playing games, listening to my dad nagging on the side. Ruoyan really is worthy of being the chairman's daughter. Most of my energy was relaxed, rather than the game in my hand suddenly becoming boring. My dad saw my dazed look, and said with a smile, Ruoyan doesn't quite get along with her family. The leader thought of my family, having a child just the same age as her family's. So she came over from here. I looked at my dad guiltily, and in the end, said nothing. Just silently stole my dad's phone, and posted a WeChat moment. Beloved son passed away in a car accident this afternoon. May you have a safe journey. That moment, Dad was completely unaware. Going to work as usual for several days, finishing work as usual, not looking like he was being given a hard time at all. Even a slight smile was on his face. He was in a good mood. But my days were not so good. I had nightmares for half a month straight, dreaming of being scolded by the underworld guards. It's too early for you to die, burning so many houses, and cars down here for what? It messed up our market. I've been annoyed with you capitalists for a long time. I was scolded for several days in a row. My dad happened to come back from outside, and shouted into the house. He Jiang, look who's here. I was so scared I almost fell off the bed. Looking out through the crack in the door, I saw Liu Ruoyan following behind my dad. My heart leaped into my throat. I took a look at the watch, and found it was past 1 in the afternoon. Usually at this time, I would have run out to fool around. I tightly covered my mouth and hid in the wardrobe. My dad belatedly remembered that I'm usually not home at this time. My dad was stunned for a moment, his eyes looking a bit lonely. He awkwardly turned back to look at Liu Ruoyan behind him. Sorry, Ruoyan. I forgot Tiang is no longer here. Liu Ruoyan's eyes lowered slightly. It's nothing. She hummed with emotion. Uncle, these kinds of days, you have to get used to. Dad laughed dryly twice. His speaking was a bit unnatural. Of course I'm used to it, Ruoyan. Don't worry about me. Over these years, Tiang and I have spent more time apart than together. This kind of life is no different from the past. My dad, he sighed and continued. Uncle Chao's memory. Forgetting Tiang isn't here, and still bringing you over at this time. Liu Ruoyan shook her head. Even if he's gone, I will still come to see you often. The smile faded from my dad's face, as if he sensed something was wrong. Yet he couldn't say exactly what was wrong. Finally, he just smacked his lips, and said nothing. Liu Ruoyan came to my room. She sat on the sofa by my bed, with no expression and saying nothing, just sitting there quietly all afternoon. I almost fell asleep in the wardrobe. Before I heard the person on the sofa move, I saw Liu Ruoyan toward my pillow, stuffing something under it. When she was about to leave, she looked back and glanced around the bedroom. I will come to see you often. As soon as Liu Ruoyan left, I scrambled out of the wardrobe, and took out the thing under the pillow. It looked like a small bracelet woven from 2 people's hair. Half white, but you could tell the hair was very long. The other dark half was clearly mine. I shuddered. Is this some kind of cursed witchcraft? What a girl. No wonder I have nightmares every day. Won't let me go even after death. So stingy, I grumbled for a long time. Recalling Lu Ruoyan's last words, come often. In the end, I was still afraid. I immediately packed my things and left. I waved to my dad. Mom said she missed me. Asked me to stay for a few days. I'll come back in a few days. I entered the elevator with tears. To save my father's job, I had to go far away. I felt a sense of helplessness and desolation. Blinked my eyes. Then, aren't you eating dinner? I stewed some braised bones. Went to my mom's place. My mom held a wine glass in one hand and carried the braised bones I brought in the other. I sat to the side sobbing uncontrollably. Explained everything that happened recently. My mom looked disgusted. Waved her hand impatiently. Interrupted me. No big deal. Look at the moments you posted using your dad's phone. I thought you really weren't going to live anymore. My dad's personality is quite conservative. He has accumulated so many contacts and experience. But he always just works for others. My mom didn't want to worry about so much. After she resigned back then, she thought about starting her own business. Because the risk was too high. The two of them argued for a long time. Finally, they had no choice but to divorce, and went their separate ways. My mom wiped her hands and said to me, if you're not really dead, you'll have to meet eventually. If he hates you, then his goal is to see you suffer. Since that's the case, you make a mess of yourself. Being miserable, doesn't that just fulfill his wish? I suddenly realized. That was how it was with my mom and her ex-boyfriend. That man was unfaithful and conceited, and loved to put my mom down. His only virtue was being rich. After my mom scammed a lot of money out of him, she dumped him. He wanted revenge. My mom started doing it herself. Today diagnosed with a terminal illness. Tomorrow choking on water and going to the hospital. Extremely busy. That man just watched for amusement all day. The revenge he planned just fizzled out. Now they have a partnership. My mom also got through the hardest time of the early startup. The past is already rotten. In the stomach, never mentioned again. I wiped my snot and tears in front of my mom, secretly noting down my mom's words. Sure enough, coming to find my mom. Correct, I sniffled and asked her. Is it still that same uncle at home? My mom shook her head. Changed to this one who is handsome, but brought a child who doesn't talk much. I nodded. Just then the door opened. My mom put down the wine glass, put on a fake smile. Ruyan is back. Hearing that name, my scalp tingled. My eyes met Lu Ruyan's at the door. She just came back from outside, still with Lian Qi. My mom was still telling me to say hello. He Tang, Albus is Lu Ruyan. She's a bit older than you. You have to call her sister. Lu Ruyan looked up at me, slowly savoring those two words. Brother, Lu Ruyan eventually asked about my dad's Moments post. I strictly remembered my mom's words and stammered. I got a girlfriend. My dad didn't agree. So after I eloped, pretended to have a car accident in another city. As I spoke, while carefully watching Lu Ruyan's reaction, Lu Ruyan's eyes narrowed slightly. You got a girlfriend? I nodded, pondering a belly full of words not yet spoken. Then I heard Lu Ruyan laugh. He suddenly leaned in close to me. Those thin lips of his opened and closed before my eyes. Then does your girlfriend know we live together? I was suddenly speechless, only knowing to stare blankly at Lu Ruyan. My mom was still telling us to get along well. I snapped out of it and hurriedly looked away, lowered my head and told a lie, saying I was tired, and going upstairs to sleep first. The moment I returned to the bedroom and pulled back the covers, a bed full of joss paper was blown all over the room by the wind from the window. My mind suddenly went blank. My mom noticed something was a bit off, and came upstairs to find me. Don't you like that child? I nodded and shook my head. We had conflicts at the same school before. Our relationship wasn't very good. I lived with Lu Yan for 3 years. When she first arrived, she was tiny and looked quite cute. Then he started growing taller, and became increasingly cold. I once happened to see a few people bullying him. Lu Ruyan kicked someone down the stairs, his expression dark and terrifying. It was the first time I saw Lu Ruyan like that. After I went back, I couldn't sleep in the middle of the night, thinking about how I had learned so many years of taekwondo. I got out of bed, and facing the air, did a high leg flying kick. The next day my muscles were strained, and I was grimacing in pain for half a month. Since then, I rarely went up to Lu Ruyan to cause trouble in a cheeky way. I had just finished picking up the joss paper scattered all over the floor, when I heard the sound of the door opening downstairs again. It should be that uncle my mom likes who came back. I turned off the lights, and pretended to sleep. I'm not very comfortable getting along with those uncles. Since I've already seen Lu Ruyan, then there's no need for me to hide. I should just go home early. After I made up my mind, I got up the next day and packed my things to leave. When I got in the car, I looked back at the house behind me a couple of times. When I brought the joss paper to Liu Oyan's room this morning, there was no one in his room. It looked like he was intentionally avoiding me. She really hates me. My mom comforted me last night, saying I was making a fuss over nothing. Your dad got that position through ability, not through connections. What is there to worry about? I thought about it over and over, and felt those words made sense. Thinking this way, I felt more confident. I asked the driver to stop somewhere far from the neighborhood. I wanted to walk the rest of the way back myself. The driver did as told. After getting out, I breathed a long sigh of relief. Before I could even finish that breath, there was a loud crash behind me, accompanied by the piercing sound of tires screeching against the ground. And the taxi I was just in had been crushed by a black car inside. The driver was already unconscious. I broke into a cold sweat without realizing it. It had been less than a minute since I got out of the car. If I hadn't suddenly wanted to walk a bit, the person in there now, with a face full of blood, fate unknown, would probably have been me too. I couldn't help but shiver. After calling emergency services, I turned around and walked home quickly. I called my dad and told him about this. My dad comforted me. Don't be afraid. It's good that you're not hurt. Don't think too much. Dad ordered lunch for you. The delivery person is already downstairs. Go downstairs and get it. I gave a hum of agreement, taking the elevator downstairs in a daze. I waited at the door for a while. Black smoke drifted before my eyes. The delivery person came over and muttered casually, "Where is the fire?" I looked up, only to see black smoke drifting out of my home's window. Flames were faintly visible within. Everyone was shouting. Firefighters arrived in time. No casualties were caused. My dad also rushed back from the company after knowing about this. He only breathed a sigh of relief when he saw me sitting downstairs eating a lunchbox. My dad patted my shoulder. That was close. If it weren't for picking up the delivery, something would have probably happened. I'll handle the matters over there. Go stay at Dad's apartment over there. I wanted to say okay, but when I opened my mouth, all I tasted was the smell of blood. Not a single word could come out. The phone in my pocket chimed. I took it out and saw a text message from Liu Ruyan. A return gift for you. Do you like it? Spitting out the food in my mouth, seeing that the rice was covered in blood. Tiny glass shards were faintly visible mixed within. I threw the rest of the food into the trash can, casually wiped the blood overflowing from the corner of my mouth. Then I took my phone to call my mom. Mom, has Liu Ruyan gone home? My mom gave a hum of affirmation. After I hung up the phone, dragged my suitcase back to my mom's place again. Only this time I went by bus. This time the journey was safe and sound. My mom and Uncle Lou were both in the living room. I gave a greeting and ran upstairs to put away my luggage. When coming downstairs, a pair of hands suddenly gave me a hard push from behind. My body was out of control, tumbled forward and down, hurriedly protecting my head, falling down from the cold, hard steps. Crashing so hard my whole body was in pain. My vision was a bit blurred. I opened my eyes, saw Liu Ruyan standing on the stairs looking down at me from above. I suddenly remembered a while ago, quietly witnessing the scene of Liu Ruyan kicking someone else down the stairs. Someone behind me supported me. "Little brother, are you hurt anywhere?" I heard the voice and turned my head to look back. Uncle Leah and my mom were both standing behind me. The one supporting me was a girl about my age. I knew this girl. My dad had taken me to eat with his colleagues. This girl was the child of my dad's colleague, 2 years older than me, named Su Qing-sui. Liu Ruyan, unhurriedly, came down from upstairs and stood in front of me. Asked me why I suddenly fell down the stairs for no reason. I trembled, wanting to lose my temper. But in the end, I held it back. I didn't stand firmly myself. Liu Ruyan reached out wanting to pull me up. When I pushed him away and looked at him, gave him a fierce glare. Time and again, almost took my life. No matter how great the grudge, it's all written off now. Liu Ruyan, I don't owe you anymore. My body was covered in blue and purple bruises. Su Qing-sui came over to help me apply medicine. How could falling accidentally be this serious? You look like you were pushed down by someone. I didn't say a word. Su Qing-sui is interning at Uncle Lou's company. Uncle Lou thinks she is a promising talent. Brought her back to introduce her to my mom. Su Qing-sui saw that I wasn't speaking. The smile on her face also slowly faded. Asked me uncertainly, "You weren't really pushed down, were you?" I've heard of children in blended families having conflicts due to discord. But this is too much. If you hadn't protected your head in time, something really serious might have happened. Just as she finished saying this, Liu Ruyan pushed the door open. When Su Qing-sui saw her, her expression wasn't very good. Liu Ruyan slowly sat down beside me, took the ointment away. "You can't see the wound on your back. I'll apply it for you." Su Qing-sui seemed to think of something. A flush appeared on her cheeks. Liu Ruyan glanced at her. "My dad is looking for you. About that project you're in charge of. He has something to tell you." Su Qing-sui had no choice but to leave. Before leaving, she specifically comforted me. "Don't be afraid. I'll be back in a while." As soon as the door closed, Liu Ruyan lowered her eyes and asked with a smile what I was afraid of. "It's not like I'm going to eat you." After saying that, she paused. Then she sized me up. I was embarrassed and angry, reaching out to grab the ointment from her hand. "I don't need your help. My girlfriend will be back in a while." Liu Ruyan took the opportunity to grab my hand and hugged me. "You drove away the boys who liked me. Why can you just turn around and get a girlfriend with a clear conscience? By all rights and reason, you should give yourself to me as compensation." I knew I was in the wrong. Wanted to argue but couldn't find any words to say. Back when the school hunk was going to confess to her, I knew about it. I was seatmates with the school hunk, whispering in the school hunk's ear all day. Talking bad about Liu Ruyan didn't work. That girl, besides having good grades and being beautiful, and having a bit of money, what's so good about her? Since I couldn't stop my seatmate, I played a dirty trick on Liu Ruyan. The school hunk asked Liu Ruyan if she had received his love letter. Liu Ruyan instinctively reached into her jacket pocket, and what she pulled out was my newly bought red boxers. Liu Ruyan's face turned red. She came back to question me why I did that. I wanted to deny it, but Liu Ruyan was the one who signed for my package yesterday, so I found the most suitable sounding reason. "I like you. I can't stand seeing you with someone else." Liu Ruyan was silent for a long time. Finally knocked my head twice hard. "Nonsense. Save those words until you and I get into a university together." The Liu Ruyan of the past, though quiet, had a fairly gentle personality. Before I could think more, Liu Ruyan rudely pulled me back to reality. "But now I should be glad I'm not with you. People who are fickle and don't take feelings seriously should die a horrible death. Someone like Su Xin-jae is a perfect match for you." I struggled to get up. "I don't want you. Get out." I don't know which word triggered Liu Ruyan, but she suddenly pressed me down hard with her hands. "Don't move if you don't want it to hurt more. My mom told me last night." Situation: Liu Ruyan's parents divorced when she was 8. Her father was often away on business trips, and her mother was at home with her. It just so happened that an old classmate of my father lived next door. The old classmate always bought him snacks, and would also take care of him and his mother. They always played. The game was for Liu Rian to see when the old classmate's wife's car entered the community downstairs, and then go upstairs to tell Mom. This kind of game was played for over a year. After Dad came back, he had a big fight with Mom. They got divorced, and Mom got together with the old classmate. The old classmate's wife clung to Liu Ruoyan like a mad dog and went to Liu Ruoyan's school to cause a scene, saying her mother seduced her husband. Liu Ruoyan changed schools 3 times. She hated games, hated snacks, and also hated Mom. Every time her father found a new female companion, Liu Ruoyan wouldn't even come home. Liu Ruoyan was very pitiful. When I heard it, I only felt heartache. But after I sent Su Qingsu away, a flower pot fell from upstairs. When it grazed the back of my head and shattered at my feet, that bit of heartache vanished completely. If this isn't murder, what is? A natural-born bad seed. I no longer cared about before. The things I felt guilty about towards her, it also didn't matter. Whether my mom would fight with Uncle Liu. I ran upstairs to find someone, but I couldn't see my mom anywhere. I only found Uncle Liu. Uncle Liu said to me, "Your mother has gone out. The afternoon flight, I estimate. She should be back in 3 or 4 days." Uncle Liu leaned down and asked me gently, "What's wrong?" I pointed towards Liu Ruoyan's room. Liu Ruoyan bullied me. He threw a flower pot at me. As soon as I finished speaking, Uncle Li's expression changed immediately. "Liu Ruoyan, get out here." Liu Ruoyan came out of the room with an unfriendly look, staring quietly at me as I complained to Uncle Liu. Uncle Liu pushed me back to my room. "Go back and sleep well. I'll handle this." After saying that, I saw Uncle Liu pull Liu Ruoyan into the study. "I have arranged a school for you abroad. Tomorrow you will go." The people inside seemed to be having a fight. My ears were filled with the messy sounds of things being smashed. When Liu Ruoyan came out of the study, a piece of his forehead was cut, staining his eyebrows and eyes red. When he pushed open my bedroom door, I was startled by his appearance. "What did you say to Lassie?" Hearing Liu Ruoyan's questioning, I gave him a provocative smile. "I went to speak ill of you. It's getting late. You better hurry back and pack your things, and wait to go study abroad alone tomorrow." I reached out to push Liu Ruoyan out. Liu Ruoyan laughed out of anger and held down my shoulders. "Even if I go, I'll take you with me." I was disgusted. I reached out to hit him, but before my hand could land on Liu Ruoyan's face, suddenly, the back of my head hurt and I fell to the ground. At the last moment before I lost consciousness, I could only see Liu Ruoyan standing in front of me. I opened my mouth, but couldn't speak. "You piece of scum." When I opened my eyes, I was no longer at home. There were no windows here. The door was tightly locked. It couldn't be opened from the inside at all. I was both angry and afraid, pacing back and forth in the room, cursing under my breath. "Liu Ruoyan, you beast. When I get out, I'll definitely beat you to a pulp." Was cursing, I was also throwing things. In the end, I lost the strength to get angry. All that's left in my heart is fear. I won't tattle anymore. You can bully me back however you want. I'll break up with my girlfriend. Please let me out. Liu Ruoyan is a good person. Liu Ruoyan didn't make a sound at all. I wailed for a long time. There were no neighbors. I knocked on the door, but no property management came for me. That scumbag, Liu Ruoyan, naturally didn't show up either. Didn't go missing. I couldn't see the sun or the moon either. I can't tell how long I've been here. I only know I finished all the bread in the fridge. I was so hungry I was seeing stars curling up on the bed. Just when I thought I was going to die like this, Liu Ruoyan came back. He looks very haggard, as if he hadn't rested for a long time. I thought he had already gone abroad, really planning to leave me to fend for myself. I was still clutching his photo that I found in the corner. The photo. I had already drawn turtles all over his face. I quickly hid the photo. Seeing Liu Ruoyan, I threw myself into his arms, crying until my voice was hoarse. "I won't scold you anymore. I won't report on you anymore. Don't lock me in here." Liu Ruoyan held me and didn't say a word, reaching out and fumbling over his body, stealthily swiping the phone from her pocket. Seeing Liu Ruoyan not speaking, I propped myself up to kiss the corner of his mouth. "Is it okay if I break up with my girlfriend?" Liu Ruoyan closed his eyes, let out a long sigh, and pulled me away from her arms. "Okay, I'll take you out." I gripped the phone I stole from him, and asked cautiously, "Where to?" Liu Ruoyan, "Going home." But which home he was returning to was left vague by him. I didn't want to believe him anymore. What if the neighbors complained about the noise here? And Liu Ruoyan was afraid I'd be discovered, and wanted to move me? Anyway, with the phone in my hand, it's safer to call for help. I retreated to the bed and covered myself with the quilt. Turned over. My gastritis flared up. My stomach hurt so much, I can't walk. I want to wait a bit before going out. Liu Ruoyan's brow furrowed slightly. A slightly cool palm covered my belly. No matter how Liu Ruoyan tried to persuade me, I remained unmoved. Liu Ruoyan had no choice in the end, and could only take a step back. "I'll go buy medicine for you. When you're better, we'll leave," I hummed in response. Just as Liu Ruoyan left, I immediately used the phone to call the police. But someone came even faster than the police. Su Qingsui touched, carefully, my cheeks. Her voice was trembling. "You've suffered so much these past few days." Tears welled up in my eyes. I forced myself not to cry in front of her. Su Qingsui took my hand and led me to her car. I looked back. Behind was the suburbs. That building looks like it has been there for years. The possibility of people still living upstairs was slim. I've been staying in the basement these past few days, coming out and seeing the sunlight. I wasn't quite used to it for a moment. I squinted my eyes, opened my mouth to ask, "How did you know I was here?" Su Qingsui sighed. "Your mom said you went missing, and was calling the police and asking your friends everywhere if they knew your whereabouts. I've been worried since you found the clues, so I rushed over to find you. I really didn't expect that Lo Ruyan would be so cruel to this extent. Su Qingsui's teeth were clenched, her hatred reaching its peak. I swept my gaze back out of the corner of my eye, and saw a black car following closely behind without letting go. Su Qingsui cursed under her breath. Li Ruyan has caught up, truly persistent like a ghost. Her flight to go abroad is this afternoon. She probably wants to forcibly take you away too. I quietly looked at the car behind. The person in the driver's seat, I just couldn't quite see the face clearly. I was actually also a bit curious, since my mom was so anxious to call the police to find me. Then the one who got the clue first and came to save me. Even if it wasn't the police, it should have been my mom. How could it be her, Su Qingsui, who has no power or connections? The Su next to me, Qingsui comforted me. Don't worry, I will protect you. I looked up at her and smiled faintly. You're coming to protect me. Then who will protect you? I reached out and poked her face, and said with a grin, your acting is quite convincing, but the persona set for you is too different from your true nature. We met, I was having a meal with him. My dad arrived a bit late. I went with my dad's subordinate. Su Qingsui looked at me sideways, her eyes full of disdain, telling me to buy her a drink, ordering me to pour her tea. After taking 2 sips, she looked at me with a sour face. Your parents, whatever they are like, you are like, asking you to pick out tea leaves. What you choose is all pathetic, trashy work. You'll never make it in your life. After my dad arrived, her expression changed a bit, and said hypocritically that she was joking with me before. No matter how she behaves afterwards, her low-class nature, I will never forget it for the rest of my life. The car behind suddenly overtook and crashed into us. The gentle mask on Su Qingsui's face completely fell apart, letting her shout and scream. The airbag in front of her didn't even deploy. I smiled, and then lost consciousness. I just had a brain. Really, staying in the hospital for a few days will be fine. But Su Qingsui wasn't so lucky. Fragments of the windshield blinded one of her eyes, with countless wounds, large and small, on her face. 2 ribs were broken, and her right leg had a severe fracture. The rest of her life is essentially ruined. Su Qingsui, sitting in a wheel. You came to my hospital room to see me. She was wrapped in gauze all over. I became like this just to save you. He Tiang, you must take responsibility for the rest of my life. I sized her up and down with contempt. Are you worthy? When I received Lai Ruyan's text downstairs that day, I sensed something was wrong. I did have Lai Ruyan's number in my phone. The name I saved it as was Doggy. My dad kept an ugly old dog in the apartment. That dog has its own phone watch. I saved the contact for that dog as Liu Ruyan. How could a dog send me WeChat or text messages? I took a look at the number. Sure enough, it was an unfamiliar number. My phone had been secretly tampered with. Someone was Purpo, driving a wedge between me and Liu Ruyan. I stayed at my mom's place last night. My mom couldn't have touched my phone, knowing that the contact was saved as Liu Ruyan. At that time, she also called me naive, but didn't say anything either. Excluding them, only one person was left. I hesitated again and again, and ended up going back to my mother's place. Su Qingsui, whom I've always disliked, happened to be there too. Uncle Liu actually said her work ability was good. Laughable Su Xingsu. Her father is the purchasing manager, making a fortune from kickbacks. Her father substituted inferior goods for quality ones, causing problems with the company's new products, and resulting in serious losses for the company. Now he's about to go to jail. His father's reputation is already well known in the circle. Su Qingsui is his biological daughter. Uncle Li would have to be crazy to look at Su Qingsui without prejudice. This appearance is truly very strange. When I fainted, the injury was to the back of my head, but Liu Ruyan was standing in front of me. If Uncle Liu were really as good as he appeared, Liu Ruyan couldn't have brazenly taken me to lock me up outside. When Liu Ruyan came to find me, I chose to take a gamble. I stole his phone, intending to call the police, to leave myself a way out. Then I told him everything I had been through. Liu Ruyan told me very calmly that he didn't do it, and that I could trust him once. I said, then do one thing for me, and I'll believe you didn't do it. I asked him to tamper with Su Qingsui's car. If my guess was wrong, then when I get out, I will compensate Su Qingsui with a new car. But clearly I was right. Liu Ruyan came to find me, and because of what happened before, I would doubt him and not go with him. At this time, kind Su Qingsui comes to rescue me. I would definitely choose to go with her. The person secretly harming me has always wanted to intimidate me, and then naturally shift the blame onto Liu Ruyan. At a time like this, when I want to leave, knowing where I'm hidden, after Liu Ruyan catches up, becoming angry out of humiliation, driving the car into me, would seem perfectly logical in every way. Even if I didn't see the face clearly, I would consider Liu Ruyan the mastermind behind this accident. But the other party wouldn't expect Su Qingshui's car to have a problem, and Liu Ruyan himself was very clear about this. As long as he had a bit of sanity left, he wouldn't crash into that car. The hit-and-run driver was caught, but Su Qingshui didn't want it to end like this. She called the police as if she had nothing left to lose. Lucy, intentional murder. He instigated the car accident. He is also suspected of arson, malicious injury, and illegal imprisonment. I have evidence in my hands. When Su Qingsui came out of the police station, she and her wheelchair were kicked over by her father. Chairman Li Yu originally said if you were with He Tiang, and would arrange a good position for you. You useless thing, you didn't get a single thing done. Chairman Lu also turned a blind eye, as if you had completed it. So why did you have to make such a big deal out of it? Su Qingsui swung her fists at her father in anger. With me looking like this, neither human nor ghost, how could he possibly promote me? My life is ruined, and none of you will have it easy either. Before Liu Si went to prison, he requested to see Liu Rian once, After I was discharged from the hospital, I went there with Liu Ruyan, and looked much more haggard. He had settled everything before going to prison. All the property was given to Liu Ruyan. The company's business had already been handed over to the assistant and Liu Ruyan, possessing immense wealth. Having only one child, Liu Ruyan. Even at the end, he didn't forget to pave the way for his child. No matter who looks at it, this is a very good father. But after Lucy saw Liu Ruyan, the first sentence was, "I hate you to death. Liu Ruyan, your mother and I, plumb and bamboo horse, having spent so many years together. If you hadn't been so stupid and told me nothing, he and I wouldn't have ended up getting divorced. The person I love most left me. What right do you have to be happy?" Lucy looked up at me and suddenly smiled. The tone was as gentle as when we first met. "How long do you plan to play around with Liu Ruyan?" Liu Ruyan stood up and blocked me behind her. Enough. Liu Ruyan closed her eyes, no longer looking at Lucy, turning to hold my hand. "Let's go." Seeing this, Lucy laughed with a hideous face. Liu Ruyan's face looked very pale. "Really stupid. We're turning a bit blue." I stopped in my tracks. Liu Ruyan had no choice but to stop and look back at me. Her eyes were red. Tears were welling up in her eyes. I raised my hand and pinched her chin, kissed the corner of her lips. I looked back at Lucy behind me. I planned to stay with Liu Ruyan for a lifetime. Just entered the door after returning home. Liu Ruyan suddenly approached me. "Yiqiang, couple should often softly." Saying so, she was about to kiss me. I raised my arm and pushed him away, mimicking the nasty tone she used back then. "Frivolous and lecherous people deserve a miserable death. Stay with someone like you." Liu Ruyan was stunned, looking at me somewhat helplessly. I glared at her, turned around and left. Liu Ruyan looked as if she were about to break, standing at the door in a daze. I turned around and ran back quickly. "But if you really want to kiss, I can reluctantly agree." I wanted to continue, saying something, but it was all swallowed by Liu Ruyan. When I went missing, my mom didn't know. Lucy conspired with my mom's friend to trick her into traveling. When my mom came back and found I wasn't there, she thought I had gone home. Not until Lucy was imprisoned did my mom know something happened to me. My mom was so angry she almost had to find a better lawyer to have Lucy, that fatty. Why didn't I realize earlier he was such a perverted thing? My mom patted Liu Ruyan's head. "You poor child, you've suffered these years. If you have nowhere to go, you can come live at Auntie's house." Then my mom went to find my dad, grabbed my dad's ear, and my mom was angry at herself for not being careful enough with me, and angry at my dad for being too negligent of the child. On the day school started, my dad and mom took us together, me and Liu Ruyan. My roommate asked me curiously, "Yiqiang, is that Beauty your girlfriend?" I shook my head and answered, "Just ordinary friends." The next second, Liu Ruyan turned around carrying my coat. "Auntie mixed up our things. Is my toothbrush at your place?" I fell silent. The luggage was clearly packed by Liu Ruyan. Pa, so calculating. Side story, Lucy's perspective. My wife and I, childhood sweethearts. When I was 15, the elders in the family told me we would be husband and wife in the future. I was successful in my career. My wife also loved me very much. Our child was very smart, very cute. I felt I was happier than anyone else. But during that year and a half on business trip, my home was completely destroyed. I tried to get my wife to stay, even though she was pregnant at that time. I could also not care. As long as it's aborted, I can act like nothing happened. But she was unwilling. When we divorced, she had nothing. Just packed a few clothes and left. Liu Ruyan stood to the side, as if not understanding what happened. I was full of resentment. In the end, I blamed all the faults on her. If Liu Ruyan had told me these earlier, maybe I wouldn't have come to this point today. The woman next door went crazy. She didn't dare to trouble me. So she went after Liu Ruyan's. Whether she hit Liu Ruyan, or went to the school, I pretended to be completely unaware, and didn't want to care. She deserved it. But that day Liu Ruyan suddenly resisted. When that woman was hitting her, she pierced through that woman's palm with a knife. That woman was terrified, and never dared to look for Liu Ruyan again. Really seemed like a different person. The well-behaved and sensible child in my memory was gone. I didn't remarry, but I never lacked women. They all more or less resembled my wife. I would feel a hint of comfort. But sometimes I would also think of those betrayals. At these times, I would usually take my anger out on Liu Ruyan. But she was no longer submissive. She smiled at me holding the knife that pierced that woman that day. I couldn't stand a child like this, so I simply sent her away. But after all, she is the only child of me and my beloved. Her personality wasn't suitable for boarding school. I also didn't feel safe with her living alone. While I was struggling, Qiang's father came. I knew everything about Liu Ruyan's affairs in school. I knew she liked that young man who lived with her. Coincidentally, that young man also liked her. On what grounds? My marriage has already been destroyed. How could she be happy then? He brought Liu Ruyan back, then turned around and left. From when Yiqiang came that day on, my sowing of discord began. Su Qingsui was the pawn I chose. I wanted Liu Ruyan to watch the person she liked, become completely disgusted with her, and be with someone else in front of her. Then send Liu Ruyan abroad. By the time she returns to the country, what she would get is the news that Yiqiang has already married. I still don't understand how I was exposed. Perhaps that kid's love and trust for Liu Ruyan far exceeded my imagination. After I got out of prison, I quietly attended their wedding. Liu Ruyan didn't look as beautiful in a wedding dress as my wife. That kid wasn't as handsome as me in a suit. But they were very much in love. The red envelope I packed was placed in Yiqiang's mother's hand. Yiqiang's mother looked down at the light red envelope and asked me how much. I closed my eyes, smiled and said priceless. Inside is what I tore from Liu Ruyan's notebook back then. An unsent love letter. Now that things have come to this, Then I wish you to